Equalizer? I heard the synthesizer! Welcome back, home studio professionals. In this video, we are getting you started on your journey to understanding EQ. But first, what is EQ? EQ stands for equalization. Have you ever adjusted the bass, mids, or treble on your stereo system or car speakers? If so, then you already have some experience using EQ. In the simplest of terms, we are changing the volume at different frequencies. Let's take a look in the software. So I've pulled up a basic parametric EQ, and we'll first walk through the controls. This EQ may look a little different than yours, but this is generally what a parametric EQ plugin will look like, and all of these concepts will transfer to any parametric EQ that you're using. Now right here is going to be a graph. I'm just going to hit play. So this graph shows us what frequencies are happening within the frequency spectrum. And on this graph, we have the frequency range from 20 Hz at the lowest to 20 kilohertz at the highest. And frequency is how many times a sound wave will complete a full back and forth vibration cycle in 1 second. The more cycles per second, the higher the pitch. So if you're looking at your stereo setup, the bass is the low frequencies and treble is the high frequencies. Let's take a look at some of the bands. Each of these sections is the same, so don't get intimidated by all these knobs. They each have a frequency that you can select and a gain knob for turning up and down the volume of that band. And each one has this Q knob, which changes the bandwidth or the width of the band to make it wider or more narrow. So if I boost the gain at this frequency, it defaults to a bell curve at 1 kilohertz. We call this a bell curve because the band is shaped like a bell. It not only boosts the one frequency you selected, but the surrounding ones as well. I can shift the band around with the frequency knob, or make the band more narrow or wider with the Q knob. Narrow bands, like this, are good for surgical cuts, to cut out resonance in a snare drum or guitars without affecting too many of the surrounding frequencies. Wider bands, like this one, are great for overall tone shaping. They have a much smoother slope, which makes the EQ less noticeable. On the far left here, we have a high-pass filter section, otherwise known as the low cut. This will cut the low rumble and clean up muddy tracks that have too much bass. We can change how extreme we want this to be with this button right here, either 6 decibels per octave or 12 decibels per octave. This is also true of the low-pass filter, otherwise known as the high cut. This allows us to shave off some of that piercing high end and smooth out tracks. Again, we can change how extreme we want this to be. And on each side, we have the mighty shelf. We call this a shelf because, well, it looks like one. But it's useful if you want to boost or cut all of the frequencies from a certain point. I like to use low shelves on kick drums to boost everything below 80 Hz. This gives it a powerful low end. And I like to use high shelves on vocals to boost everything above 12 kilohertz, to give the vocal track some shiny air. Now that we've gone through the controls and you know how a parametric EQ works, what would be your starting point? How would you use it practically? Let's begin with a snare drum. I can show you how to listen and know what to do next. We'll pull up the EQ. Now I have this graph on just to show you what's going on, but I generally have this off for mixing. I don't like to see the EQ moves I'm doing, I just want to hear them. But we'll leave it on just for the purposes of this video, just so you can kind of get an understanding of what's going on. The first thing I hear is this weird ping. I don't want to totally kill it because that's what's going to help the snare cut through the mix, but I do want to tame it a little bit. To do that, I would boost one band and make it very narrow. Now remember, narrow bands are great for cutting because you can almost pinpoint what you're going for. So I'm going to sweep around and try to find the ping. There it is. And like I said, I don't want to totally kill it, so I'm just going to dip it a little bit. The next thing I want to do is add some snap to the snare. I usually do this within the mix, but this is just a demonstration, so we'll keep it in solo. So I've reduced the ping, the thing I didn't like, and now I want to add snap. So that means I want to boost something. Let's start by boosting, and we'll sweep around until we hear what we like. That's pretty good right there. Now I don't want it this extreme, so I'm just going to turn this down. The next thing I want to do is add some air. So I'm going to turn on the shelf and boost, and I'll sweep up to the frequency where I think it sounds the best. I like where that's sitting. I just need to turn the gain down now. And the last thing I want to do is just clean up a little bit of this low end. But before we get to this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. So I'll turn on the low cut and bring it down until the fatness comes back in the snare. And you know, I think we could actually make this a little bit more extreme. And after hearing that low end cut, I actually want to boost some of the bottom end punch of the snare, but not anything below the fundamental frequency. So I'll boost again, sweep around until I hear what I like. It's sounding nice and fat there, but I think we've got a little bit too much here. That's sounding really good. Now that we've completed the snare EQ, I want to bypass this and see if it's better. Because we did some boosting, that turns up the volume overall, so we need to be careful not to trick our ears and think it's better just because it's louder. So here it is, before any EQ, we are bypassed. So it is definitely louder. Of course it sounds better and more exciting, but we need to balance this. Over here, we have an output knob. We want to match the volume of the EQ before and after to really get a sense of what's going on here. That's much more closely matched. Now we are hearing the different snare EQ at the same level. You can hear before it's a little bit boxy sounding, and after we've got nice snap and good low end punch. And that is how you read, set up, and use an EQ in your own mixes. If you want to watch more tutorials on specifically EQing different instruments, check out these videos right here. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.